making sure everything works before I go through trouble of, this great big monologue that'll open the whole big show. I just hope everybody's paying attention because I guess it was E3 day. And so everyone's bitching and complaining, I notice. So I'm going to give everyone a chance to say hello to me. Hello, my friends. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night to each and every one of you. Welcome to Monday Night Chaos. A little more low-key. I don't have a whole lot planned for this evening. I just knew that people were losing their minds because I wasn't around. And as you see, we're appearing in high def right now. And I don't know if this is necessarily a great thing because you get to see what I actually look like. So on the other hand, I guess the joke's on you for showing up. But thank you for showing up. Welcome to Monday Night Chaos. It's the place where all your wildest desires are completely ignored. And that's the way we like it right here on this program. Also, I want to remind you before we get too far along that you can find all the information, how to get a hold of me for all you people that think I was dead and been gone for so long. I've been gone for like 5 weeks. Okay, it's summertime. Give me a break. But drop me a line. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. If you follow me on Twitter and the Facebook, you'll know that I'm around. I'm here and I'm there. I'm not one of those people that says something and puts up a video every single goddamn day because somehow I feel like you'll forget about me. I have this feeling, I have this notion, this concept inside my brain that somehow I'm a fairly easy person to remember. I'm sure it's hard for all of you to forget me. So I don't worry about that sort of thing. There's a lot of people who do a lot of video game coverage, especially, who feel they have to be on here every minute of every day. What they're really doing is gathering political allies. Just so you know, all those people you think that are interested in this for video games and the love of the community and they want to know what you think, they're gathering political allies. Because one day YouTube might turn into something else. I recognize that now. I know there are people in this audience that watch this stuff, this program, this rinky-dink little program that nobody cares about. There are people that watch these videos over and over and over and over again. And either they're trying to learn something about me or they respect my opinion and would like to hear more of it. Whatever it is, the fact remains is that I have been a part of your life for quite some time. And you have been a part of my life for quite some time. Our relationship is asymmetrical. But the fact remains is that the relationship I have is similar to the relationship that you have with other people that you watch on the internet, on YouTube, so on and so forth. And it's especially important to remember that people don't think that much of YouTube right now, and of course, because it's still kind of a new technology, but there are people who remember the early days of television, the early days of radio, and still sympathize with those people. I think I'm way off topic because I'm supposed to be talking about E3. The point is, just abandon that whole line of thought. Fuck that shit, right? The point is that I'm here to remind you that, I don't know, sometimes you got to smile. There's a lesson in all of this. Somewhere, somehow, some way, there's some way that we can come together and understand that we're not all that bad, are we? So welcome to Monday Night Chaos. And don't forget to follow me and all that stuff down below. Pardon me, a little thirsty this afternoon. We're still in a drought here in Southern California, so things are a little dry. I won't tell you how dry because it's pretty shocking shit. I'll be perfectly honest. If you want me to be terribly honest, we have dehydrated, starving coyotes living in the hills not far from my house. And I see them dehydrated, starving, dying. The wildlife is dying in Southern California. I know I wasn't going to tell you that, but I told you anyway. Sorry. But anyway, I just got some things I'm going to get off my chest, some things I was thinking about because apparently I'm expected to think during E3 week. That's my job, is to think during E3 week and tell you all what I think. I was doing that earlier on Twitter. I won't get involved in all of that, but it is E3 week, and I hope you guys are all having a great E3 week. I'm not. There is no joy to be had in the House of Yell Chaos during this E3, but, that's not what it's for. There's this idea that it's about coming together and togetherness. It's about corporate warfare. It's about fucking these companies taking their dicks out and hoping they'll impress you with it. And sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't. I don't know. Anyway, and I know we had some unpleasantness on Sunday down in Orlando, Florida. And I don't really want to talk too much about that, but I did notice that a lot of people wasted no time at all getting their rainbow ribbons and their rainbow pins pinned to their fucking lapel, so you can tell, because that way you know I'm a nice person and you can give me your money. It's okay because I have this pin. I just noticed that came in like record time. It wasn't anything about being against terror, solidarity against terror. It was pro-gay people. It's like, I'm sure there were some straight folks that died in that. You know, I mean, you think that everybody's gay in a gay nightclub? They got to have one or two, you know, that are on the fence about it. At least you got to have like a bisexual bouncer or something like that. It's bound to happen. It's there, and just no one says it because there is ostracism in that group. That group that claims to be so select, so remote. You know, what do they call it? LBGTQ, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, and queer, which I guess those are the people that have some sort of alternative lifestyle, but they don't want to tell anybody, which is interesting, to be part of a special interest group, but you don't want to tell even the people in the special interest group what it is that you're doing or who it is that you're doing. That's usually what seems to define these things. I just noticed that. I just thought that was interesting that we had these pins and these ribbons like that. Like that. And it's always funny to see those people attack marketing when there's marketing right on the lapel. What kind of fools do they take us for? This is what they think of you. They think you're just meat with eyes and you're not really paying attention, and that you'll fall for these symbols. So much so that they figured they would announce not only one, but two consoles with that infamous X on it, because they know you'll buy into that fucking symbolic bullshit. Like how somehow it's symbolic. Everything always goes back to the first Xbox. You ever notice that? I know some people were watching and they noticed that. The first Xbox, how great the first Xbox was. Well, we're going to talk about that more. So somebody bring that up in a little while. But I just wanted to share that. Anyway, I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about, and I'll take some of your questions, and then I'll get out of your hair. But I thank you for showing up. I thank you for stopping by. And again, drop me a line at Twitter, Facebook, say hello. If you ever need me, you know I'm not hard to come by. If you need me, and again, also don't forget to contact me at theyellkaosprogram@gmail.com. You can find me there any old time. Anytime there's something on your mind you want to talk about. Just don't be a fucking asshole. That's my policy. I try not to curse on this program because this is supposed to be a family program. There are some family people, particularly people in the central time zone. You know those. You know who I'm talking about, the folks in Gary, Indiana, and Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm trying to get those people to watch this program, and so I'm trying not to curse. But God damn it, don't be a fucking asshole. That's what I'm asking you. Please, please, I beg of thee. Maluigi Scapelli's here, and he wants to know that I see the one guy with an I'm a Gamer t-shirt at the EA conference. Well, EA was throwing two different conferences. You notice that? They only had like, and I talked about this on the Twitter, they had like 20 minutes worth of stuff to talk about. And they stretched it into like an hour and 18 minutes. And I find that interesting. You know, all the trouble to go through and to have it in not only, you know, in Los Angeles, but in London. And what London has to do with E3, I haven't the vaguest idea. But all of that across two shows, and they still had to stretch it out and fill it with interviews and all this stuff. And for those of you that pay attention, actually, and you think that Twitter doesn't work, Twitter is a work, but that's another story. I actually threw out a tweet that I said that, look what a year's time has done. I'm paraphrasing. Look what a year's time has done to Peter Moore from EA. That's what the video game industry does. It makes you just wither. You know, I mean, I'm sure just like the professional wrestling business, but just look at some of these people, what they look like from a year before, you know. And I think Phil Spencer gets Botox, but you know, we can talk about that some other time. And he actually tweeted back to me and he said, no, like it was my fault. Like I'm the reason. It's like, you take that up with Electronic Arts. Don't bother me of why you look so old. That's not my deal. I've never even come close to you. So don't seem like it was, you know, make it seem like it was my fault. But the EA press conference, yeah, it's E3 is such a work. It's there. There's plants in the audience. It's such a con. It's not in. I don't mean as in terms of a convention, but in terms of it's a confidence. It's the way to get your confidence. It's a trick. It's that's what it is. It's a trick. So, but no, I didn't see that guy. I didn't see that guy. Nick Canfield wants to know if I had a lapel pin. This guy claims, Nick's been saying that he's got a bunch of questions to ask me, and he wants to know about a lapel pin. I already have a lapel pin, and it's in the shape of a 1982 white BC Rich Warlock. I have it around here somewhere, and when I find it, I'll show you. That's my lapel pin. Why? Somebody gave it to me because they thought it was stupid. Maybe they're right. I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm going to do this right now. I'll tell everybody. I'm not answering any questions about what I would like to see at E3 because what I think doesn't matter. There's this idea that this is like some magical period. This is like a Disney movie where all your dreams come true. It's a fucking press conference. I didn't mean to curse. I'm sorry. And with Aisha Tyler using the F word in a press conference, the whole thing is just, it's off-putting. If nothing else, I'll call it off-putting. And it's a real shame. But Nick Canfield wants to know, I said something about the people in the Central Time Zone. Yes, the people in Duluth, Minnesota, absolutely. You know, it's cold as shit in Duluth. I think still, it's June, but it's still freezing in Duluth. Yeah. Chrono1220 says he feels that he's aged out of E3. I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's really... I think it's more of corporations going through the motions because that's all they understand. Corporations are meant to run over the course of an annual basis. You know, the fiscal year begins in April, and from April we go into May, and from May you go to June, July, August. That's your summer months, and that's when you're going to deal with all these periods of inactivity from school children. School children will be out of school, so you have to sell this and do this and this thing. And then March is the end of the fiscal period, and then you have to answer to somebody like the freaking school principal. That's what these calls to investors. Oh no, well, we didn't quite meet projections, and that's how corporations run. They run annualized. And now that the gaming industry is being forced to become something else, you'll notice that console gaming, PC gaming is no longer the front runner of the video game industry. The video game industry now includes, and I talked about this before, but so if I start boring you, I'm sorry. The video game industry is now part of casino gaming and mobile gaming on your cell phone, and you know, the interactive games at the mall, and all these other things that, you know, try to draw money in one way or another through what they call interactive electronic entertainment. It's just such a much bigger thing. And somehow these corporations, like I said, they don't know how to step outside of, you know, you can't annualize everything like they have, you know, or, you know, it tends to wane, especially with the amount of competition from other entertainment sources, you know. So in any event, I don't think it's a matter. I think E3 may have outlived its usefulness. I mean, I don't know that's entirely the truth, but I don't know. I really think it's just kowtowing to the ESRB and the ESA and making sure that that's made very clear that their presence matters, when I don't think they have any sort of regulation over wager-based gaming or mobile gaming. I don't think they have any sort of leeway or or if they have any influence over that at all. So again, this is announced what was once a large piece of the video game industry and now a smaller piece of the video game industry seems to be putting on this show simply because they always have. And it's I think it's, for me, it's the same way that kind of what, and this is might elude a lot of non-professional wrestling fans, but what has happened to WrestleMania. WrestleMania has become just another event in a calendar. And it doesn't really serve its purpose anymore. And that's what the thing is, like the E3, I don't think it really serves its purpose anymore. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. They said the same thing about the Tokyo Game Show, and Tokyo Game Show, I guess that depends on, who's looking at the program, I suppose. Anyway, I'm going to go to the comment section because I want to see what the hell you crazy people are talking about. No more talking about UFC. UFC's fake. So is football, for that matter. Scapelli wants to know, if E3 is corporate bullshit, why should we care? You shouldn't. It's not up to you to care. You don't have to. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like the Home Shopping Network, but once a year. It's the same thing the Home Shopping Network does all year long, but E3 does it once a year because it's expensive for them to do it, and to have all these things ready. So you shouldn't. You don't have to. It's up to you. It's none of my concern. If you don't like it, don't watch it. I was just watching it because I knew I was going to get asked about it, and I figured, well, I might as well study up and see what's going on. So I just thought I'd share that. Saturn Tube says the Star Trek game. Yeah, Ubisoft talking about the Star Trek game that runs on the Oculus Rift, I guess. I'm not sure if they're going to try and make... They're trying to talk as though VR is one platform, and it isn't. It's a bunch of different platforms that are probably not going to be cross-compatible. You thought you had problems with iOS versus Android. You wait till you got all the different VR stuff on deck. It's going to confuse the shit out of everybody, and... those games are only going to be for a very small percentage of gamers. I mean, that's serious money invested into an experience that, how many times are you really going to want to do that? Not saying you're not going to want to do it all the time, but I'm pretty sure most people are not going to want to drop that kind of coin just to see what it's like and then find out it hurts their stomach. I don't think a lot of people are going to spend that kind of money. Something else I want to talk about. I'm sorry, let's jump back to WrestleMania real quick. Nicholas Kennedy says, WrestleMania is X today to remind people that it can sell a lot of tickets based off its namesake alone. Not when they paper it. We don't know how many tickets they give away so that way they can have a full stadium. That's professional wrestling bullshit. And ticket sales mean nothing because ticket sales are taxed heavily. And if it's taxed heavily, it's not, what you really want it to be. And just because you can draw a lot of dollars one day doesn't really mean anything. Anyway. What was I talking about? About VR. VR just seems to me like it'll probably be really cool for the handful of people that can afford it, with the handful of software that's going to run really well on it. Because as we know, with any software platform, there's some standout stuff, and then there's a bunch of shit that came from somewhere else because they couldn't afford to finish it here, so they decided to put it over there. They thought it would be a better thing. Just like I saw a game, some fucking game called Riverside, and they announced that it's some indie developer. The game trailer showed nothing, but they talked about it's in development for the Oculus Rift, which I think is going to be a real hot button item this holiday, and the Nintendo NX, which I don't really think that anybody has dev kits for. So you're making a game for a system that you probably won't understand because it's bullshit. It's just that it's them trying to be important during E3 when the world is watching video games, or so they think. It's actually when the world's being bored to death by Aisha Tyler. Let me see here. Cliff Fitter says that he can see VR going to bargain bins in less than 2 years' time. I don't know if that'll be the case, especially with something this expensive. Those kind of equipment, I'm sure, would be recalled. And if there's any money left in the company, if the companies don't go out of business before that, to recall those things and sell the parts off for something else. But on the other hand, they may include a lot of proprietary technology that's not necessarily going to be useful somewhere else. So you're right. They may end up in bargain bins. We don't know. And there's going to be a lot of them. Oh, boy, is there going to be a lot of them. All right. Adam Stansel wants to know my favorite Royal Rumble pay-per-view. I always say I love the Royal Rumble, but the Royal Rumble tends to be kind of a shit show. I don't know of any good Rumbles, meaning that I was engaged for the entire duration of the Battle Royal, or the entire. There's been plenty of Royal Rumbles where I've enjoyed the undercard, and then the Rumble was a whole bunch of nothing, or decent undercard. The Rumble was okay, but had a really neat finish. You know, there's only been a few Rumbles that have had a really neat finish. So, but if I were to pick one, I'll pick one that I'm trying to think. Was it? I want to say the 1992 Rumble. Or am I thinking of the 93 Rumble? I can't remember. I think the 93 Rumble is where Bret Hart wrestled Scott Hall for the championship. But I would say that one. I'm not sure why, because that's the one where Yokozuna, like Randy Savage tried to pin the Yokozuna. Oh God, I'm getting all mixed up in that stuff. I don't remember. Everybody wants to hear about the best and worst gimmicks of pro wrestling. I don't really care for wrestling gimmicks. The best gimmick that I could ever imagine is probably the Undertaker, because it sold so many tickets and T-shirts and, you know, foam urns. Just a stunning amount of money drawn by the Undertaker. Worst gimmick? My gosh, that depends on your definition of a gimmick. Because people use this gimmick as like an all-encompassing term, and gimmick can refer to many things. But if you mean, I guess, what they would call now a pro wrestling persona, worst pro wrestling persona, there's a lot. You also have to understand, I'm not that familiar with the work of Vince Russo, so I'm sure there's stuff in that grab bag that I don't dare even get near. That's I really can't even imagine the worst one ever. God, just all kinds of things are just rushing through my brain because I'm thinking of I don't know. I may have to come back to that. I may have to come back to the Mountie. Nick Canfield is the Mountie. I disagree. The Mountie may have not drawn any money, but he was a decent heel for what he was. It was short-lived. I mean, you know, say what you want about Jacques Rougeau, senior or junior. Fantastic wrestlers, but never really drew a lot of money because they're fucking French. People from Montreal in the rest of the world are not necessarily welcome, just like people from Paris. You know? Just thought I'd share that. You'll notice that Ubisoft doesn't have much of a presence in London. Just thought I'd point that out. French people are a little hard to take sometimes. Retro Unlim brings up Mantar. Mantar flashed through my brain, but I don't remember a lot about Mantar. I remember you can't really call it a bad gimmick because it didn't go for very long. I remember that, and dude wrestled like a few times and nothing ever came of it. One gimmick that I thought that never, and I think I've talked about this before, but was featuring Mike Shaw, who was the Bastion Booger. For a brief period on Monday Night Raw, they brought him in. He was Norman the Lunatic, I think, in World Championship Wrestling. And they brought him over to Monday Night Raw, I think just to take him away from World Championship Wrestling. And he was Friar Ferguson, and he would like drink wine and then sit on people. And I thought it was a much better gimmick than the Bastion Booger. But, you know, Vince thinks that boogers and farts and dick jokes are funny. And he has so for the last like 30 years. So whatever. Just thought I'd share that. What's this about Mad Catz is having financial trouble because they couldn't sell the Rock Band 4 stuff? Well, you know, I told you. Didn't I tell you? I told you, all of you. They didn't listen to me. I said, don't do this Guitar Hero thing. You hear about the Guitar Hero Live? That shit flopped. I told you. I told all you. I guess I shouldn't have told you. I should have told them. I did tell them. I went outside and I said, hey! And they didn't listen. Kid Sure You Can says the Goon was lame. Yes, yes. Not as much as the plumber T.L. Hopper, but, you know, what are you going to do? People actually defend that gimmick against me sometimes. I'm like, fine, whatever. You like ass crack. You like to be a plumber. Good for you. Who is my favorite WCW wrestler? Well, all the WCW wrestlers were WWF wrestlers. There were very few exclusive people that just worked at World Championship Wrestling. You'd be hard-pressed to find any wrestler ever that ever worked at just one place. But I cannot remember of any time I ever really liked World Championship Wrestling. The brief period where I had the WWF Network, I tried to watch almost all of those. And even the ones that are supposedly good, like the early Starcades, are still kind of hard to take. You know, I'm trying to think who did I really like in World Championship Wrestling I think that Ricky Steamboat did much better work in World Championship Wrestling than he did in the WWF, and that's debatable. That's just what I think. That's just what I think. Lone Wolf Warrior is talking about the prospects of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I'm going to tell you guys this once and for all. I don't give a fuck what you think about your indie wrestling technicians who pull off these wonderful matches in front of 300 people, okay? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn couldn't draw a dick to a whorehouse. They couldn't draw flies if they had shit in their pants. Okay, nobody goes to see that shit. Okay, because you like indie wrestling and you like people doing backflips off of fucking ladders in front of 95 people at a rec center. It doesn't sell tickets by the thousands. It doesn't. Period. That's internet bullshit. That's internet mythology. That kind of stuff doesn't really draw money. Just like everyone who thinks they need to go back to hardcore and barbed wire and all that. That shit doesn't draw money. You know what that shit does? It spreads around bloodborne illness, and that's all. Good gosh. Anyway, Saturn 2 wants to know if I could narrate any audiobook, what would it be? No, you know what? I want you people to tell me what audiobook should I narrate, because it's not an audiobook until I would narrate it. I wouldn't do the Bible because that would take a long time. Similarly, I wouldn't do War and Peace. If I could do one and one, What would I do? What would I do? Let me think about this for a second. Hold on. I don't know. Nick Campy wants me to narrate Madonna's sex book. All right, Madonna's sex book. or I don't know. I can't think of anything like something I could say that'd be like really funny. I'm sorry. I don't know, the big book of resumes. I'll narrate the big book of resumes, and everyone will have a job. It'll be great. You'll just have to pay me $14.95 through the iOS App Store. 1984. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Maybe or Of Mice and Men. I thought that was a good one. Sad. Actually, fuck that. That movie's too sad. And the book was worse. The book was sad. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Adam Stanson wants to know my thoughts on TNA wrestling. What the hell is that? Do they still have that? Are you talking about the wrestling with the wrestlers that are on welfare? The World Welfare Association? Is that what you're asking me? Man, I don't know much about what they do anymore. I try my hardest to avoid it. I don't have to try that hard, you know. I mean, they might as well be in the witness protection program for all I know, because I never see them. Nick Canfield keeps asking about Money in the Bank. I have no idea. I haven't watched WWF TV since WrestleMania. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't care. They keep sending me an email saying, please come back to the WWF network. And I say, no. Go away. Maybe if they start throwing in Raw or something, so I don't have to have a cable package. No, I'm just not doing it. I might get the network again for the next Royal Rumble, but I don't know. I don't even know who's in that shit. Is Jericho in there? Jericho's old as shit. And what does it matter? Money in the Bank is just a plot device. It doesn't matter. It's not real professional wrestling. It doesn't really draw money. It's an illusion to make you think they draw money, to make you think that more people want to see this when they really don't. Nicholas Kennedy made a funny about the empty arena match between The Rock and Mankind. Yeah, well, it's always sad. I think I've told this too, but it's always sad when you see pictures of them filming TNA and you see the ring and you see people standing around and you see empty chairs. You see like 100 people, but you see like 600 chairs. And then you pull back and they pull back an angle and you can see that there's actually like 2,000 chairs. And then I saw somebody post a picture when you pull all the way back behind the curtain and the pipe and drape and all that stuff, and you see they're actually in a building that's supposed to seat like 9,000 people, and they drew like 102 people. That's sad. That's awful. That really is. I really think I could draw more dollars by doing nothing. I really think if I just sat out in a field, I could get more people in that to show up. I just have to talk every so often. It's awful. Saturn 2 wants to know, what if I narrated those awful Nintendo game novelizations that came out in the late 80s? I don't remember those. I really don't. Again, I'd rather narrate something that would draw money. No one's going to want to hear that. The Boston Burf says I can narrate some NASCAR romance novels. I'm not familiar with NASCAR romance novels, but if it draws money, we'll give it a shot. Nick Jackson wants to know why Microsoft is giving away their exclusives to PC gamers with Windows 10. I don't know. I don't work there. They need to try something, but they think they're so smart that they could release or announce 2 consoles within like 15 minutes of each other. That's some nerve, man. That's some nerve. Let me see here. Let me see. Nick Campfield wants to know something about something I said on the Hate Bit podcast probably years ago, and there was a jump cut. I don't know. I'm not really sure why. It might have had to do with who was doing the capturing, but some of those Hate Bit podcast episodes, I've talked about why I don't like them, because some of them are in fact damaged and salvaged, and I just don't care for them. I have no idea. I think that I guess you are all a bunch of fucking suckers. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. What do I think about the new generation gamers? I don't really think there are new generation gamers. New generation gamers are on their phones. There's some young kids that have come into the console space, but I don't really see it as that many. I think it's more people who were just traditionalists from the machine they owned previous. Xbox 360 owners bought the Xbox One. PlayStation 3 owners bought the PlayStation 4. I'm not in that group because I own an Xbox 360 and a PlayStation 3. And it's interesting. It's also interesting that Xbox had the nerve to say that with Project Scorpion, no one gets left behind and there will always be backwards compatibility, which is horseshit. And what about all those Xbox 360 users that you were going to continue to support well into the future? Well, all I know is that I'm here a couple of years in the future, and all of that is all but disappeared. So remember, it's a press conference, and the press say all sorts of things. Adam Stanson wants to know what were my thoughts on Joanie Laurer, China, of WWF fame's passing. Thank goodness. Joanie, the few times I'd seen her, not personally, I knew some people that knew her, and I saw pictures of her recently in the last few years, and she didn't look very good, and I understand was not a very happy person, and that's a shame. Probably like a lot of wrestlers, a person tormented with a lot of demons. People that hear things in their head, not to say crazy, but probably crazy. You have to be crazy to be in the wrestling business for any length of time. When I mean length of time, I mean more than one match. If you come back for another wrestling match, there's something wrong with you. But she's free. She's not suffering anymore, and you can tell she was suffering a lot. Saturn 2 wants to know, do you taste a noticeable difference between brands of bottled water? Yes. This particular one actually, though, is from the local grocery store, local supermarket, and it actually comes from a water company called Niagara Water, and they happen to contract most of the store brand, if not all of the store brand water in Southern California. So, but yeah, I have noticed that Fiji water is quite tasty, and so is Glasso Smart Water. I don't really spend a lot of money because there's not really a nutritional benefit. It's just, the way they flavor it, or they don't flavor it, I guess, but the way that it's filtered. So, yeah, I do notice a difference. Whatever, it's still better than whatever the fuck they put in Pepsi and Coke. Oh, that's right, Dasani, which Dasani tastes like, I remember once I had a Dasani, and it tastes, I really thought they took tap water, ran it along the ground, poured it into a glass, poured it into a bottle, and then handed it to me. That's really the way I felt about it. Nicholas Kennedy says there's a lot of nicks in this comment section here. That's very true. I'm very impressed by that. The staggering amount of nicks. Adam Stanson wants to know my favorite WWF Attitude Era moment. I think the Attitude Era was a bunch of garbage. There was hardly any wrestling during that period. That period of wrestling can kiss my butt. I don't care. I don't give a damn. I really don't. The best thing about that era was Owen Hart, and they flushed him down the toilet in that era. Nick Canfield wants to know, do I have any experience with Dark Souls or Bloodborne? I played the first Dark Souls way back when on somebody else's system, not mine. I don't remember a lot about it. I remember it was very similar to a game I played on the Xbox 360 when they God, what was the game? Gauntlet Dark Legacy or something. Kind of a game in that style, just Dark Souls had less lighting, whereas that Gauntlet game, or not Gauntlet, oh gosh, I can't remember now. What was the one? Well, anyway, it just reminded me of a lot of those, you know, third-person combat games or hack and slash games, I guess. I'm not. That's not really what it is. What do they call that? I don't know. Modern video game. I didn't care for it. It's a lot of slashing and a lot of blood and guts, and I listen to death metal, so I hear about that shit all the time. It doesn't really impress me when I see it in a video game. You know, it's easy to make blood and guts in a video game. They're just not, you know, they're fine. They're well made and everything for the most part. It's just not fun. If I could say anything, the same feelings I have about Ninja Gaiden, Mirror's Edge, or whatever the hell it is on the Ninja Gaiden 3 on the Wii U, which was also released on the Xbox 360. It's just a bunch of foul language and violence, and that doesn't impress me. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Scapelli wants to know the best wrestling era. There are no wrestling eras. There are only wrestling matches. No matter how high you may think of the annualized events as professional wrestling supercards, which used to be a rare thing. It used to be, people used to drive 60 miles and pay, you know, it was only like $7 or $8, but pay $8, which was a good amount of money in the 60s and 70s, to watch some of the most BS, fake, worked wrestling matches you've ever seen in your entire life. You kids have no idea how great you have it. You can say that wrestling's awful, but work rate is still notches above where it used to be, especially if you could look back at, you know, what Larry Zbyszko was doing in his prime. You know, people would drive for miles around to see that stuff. But there are no wrestling eras. There are just wrestling matches. Some of them are good. Most of them aren't. But when you see a good wrestling match, it's important to remember that wrestling match and what did you learn from that wrestling match? Because a wrestling match will teach you a lot of things, and you're allowed to arrive at your own conclusions. That's the best part of it. But there are no wrestling eras. There are just wrestling matches. Just like there are no important lives that have ever been led, most lives are comprised of a bunch of really shitty days. Your life has had a lot of shitty days in it. My life has had a lot of shitty days in it. All of us together. That's what brings us all together. We've all had lives with shitty days in it. And if you haven't had a shitty day in your life, you're lying. They happen. That's just the way things are. But what I'm trying to get at is that there are no great lives that have been led. You know, every great person has had a handful of shitty days at the very least. But what you do have is good days, good moments. That's what you have. And that's something I learned from wrestling, is that you need to savor those good moments when they come, because they don't come around very often. Remember I said that. If you take nothing else away from this program, this edition of Monday Night Chaos, remember that when good things happen, hang on to that for a little while, because it might be a while before you have another good thing come through. Nick Canfield wants to know, did I ever like Chris Jericho? Yes, I like Chris Jericho a lot, but I'm tired of seeing him, and they keep parading him out there like he's still a draw. You know, I'll say this about Chris Jericho. Even Harley Race had to retire at some point. You can read into that what you want to read into that. I also notice he doesn't quite have the trim torso that he used to. Anyway. Uh-oh. Google seems to be having problems. Let's hope this whole thing doesn't explode, shall we? We seem to be having some sort of problem because the Hangouts window is freaking out right now. So if the last few moments of this program are not so great, I'm terribly sorry. Because we're kind of freaking out on this end. So everybody, you can thank Google after I'm done with this program. But I'll take the rest of your questions and I'll get out of here. Nick Jackson asked, gun control. What is my take on gun control? There is no such thing as gun control. Weapons are made every single day. There's not a goddamn thing that you or any other government agency or anybody can do to stop it. That is our most major export in this country. Isn't that interesting? We want to talk about gun control, where we make more guns in this country than any other. And sold under the auspices of home protection. When in fact, it's bought by people who just like guns. And that's okay. The Constitution guarantees you that. But there's no such thing as gun control. Just the same way as what we're supposed to believe how the control of an airplane and aeronautics and aviation, that you can somehow control everything that goes on in an airplane once it's left the ground. It's impossible. It's pie in the sky. It's a bunch of crap, and it's stuff they tell you. That way they can justify taking your tax dollars. You don't give them your tax dollars. They take it from you, and then these are the stories they tell you, so that way you don't go to their office and chop off their head. Because if you found out what these fucking people really have in mind to do with your money, you'd be a lot more upset than you really are. My gosh, it's ridiculous. The Montreal screw job was a work. Nick Campfield wants to know, you've asked me this before. Behind me, there's a royal python in the terrarium there. I guess, or terrarium, or I forget what they call them. But yeah, there's a royal python behind me. Do I think Jared Fogle? Who's Jared Fogle? I have no idea who that is. Is he make a comeback after his prison sentence? I have no idea who Jared Fogle is. I'm sorry. And Adam Stansel wants to know my thoughts on Bret Hart. I think Bret Hart's great. He's a great wrestler. I have no opinion of him as a person outside of that because I don't know him outside of that. I just know that he's one of my favorites. I've always enjoyed watching him. He had a great jacket. I wish I looked as good in pink as he does, but I don't. You know, wishes were horses, beggars would ride. That's an old expression. Here's another old expression. And with that, I'm going to walk out of here because, I don't know, that was funny. You know, not as funny as real funny stuff like Cookie Monster and shit, but, funny anyway. So thank you, folks. I appreciate you making it out here. I know you guys could have done any other thing. So thank you very much. If you need to get in contact with me, you can find me on the Twitter. You can find me on the Facebook. You can contact me directly at theyellkaosprogram@gmail.com. That's all down there. And, thanks much, guys. And enjoy the rest of E3. I know you'll try. Make sure you try. And again, remember, there are no great lives, just great moments. Hang on to them. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.